Broadcasting Studio 24 in California, the entertainment capital of the world, featuring Dr. Dwight Rogers and Tony G. It's the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks, Weekly Recess. And now, your host, Jeremy Brooks.
Welcome to the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks, Weekly Recess. We are live in Studio 24 at Brooks Broadcasting, and we have a fantastic show for you tonight. We want to start off by thanking our 1.5 million viewers who have watched the show from around the world in 47 countries. We want to thank you, and also please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. We read the comments, and during the show, if you happen to share something in the comments, we may read them out loud. So definitely be sure to do that. Joining us tonight, as always, our incredible panel, we have Dr. Rob Martinez. You know him as the resiliency guy.
Great to be with you, Jeremy. Fantastic. Looking forward to this show about women's history and talking to this whole panel.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we've got the one, the only, Tony G.
Jeremy, great to be back. Dr. Rob and women's history buff is here. Can I say that? Can I say that?
You say that.
We shall see.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Hey, I am very excited as well. And of course, he brings us the laughs. But we are so excited tonight to talk about Women's History Month. And we've got a very special guest on the show, Dr. Jennifer Helgren. Just real quick, I'll go over her background real fast. She's the Director of General Education, the Rockwell Hunt Endowment Chair or Endowed Chair. She's a Professor of History at University of the Pacific. She teaches women's studies, and she's written some amazing books that we'll get to talk about tonight on the show. Dr. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for finding me at UOP, which Jeremy's at UOP also, so that's kind of fun. And yeah, glad to be here as the resident history buff. So
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And it is amazing because we search far and wide for, the people that come on our show. And we do get a lot of requests all the time to be on the show, by the way. And so we have to be a little selective, unfortunately. We can't invite everybody on. But we're excited to talk to you about your research and all the work that you've done with women's history, the books you've written, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. And of course, it's Women's History Month, and we wanted to make sure to celebrate on the show and to do an episode on women's history. It is so important that we, try to be more inclusive and we have these discussions. And so I'm glad we're doing that tonight on the show. Real quick, we like to do our check-in here on the show, but, we're going to be going over, here's some of the topics. We're going to go over why women's history is so important. It's important to learn about today. We'll discuss that. The history of girlhood, youth organizations. That should be fun. Lessons for education and student leadership. And also, we're going to wrap up. Gentlemen, are we ready for this? Are we ready for this?
we're ready.
We're going to do a lightning round to highlight women who inspire us. And I'm going to make sure we stick to the time so that we can, and they'll help us in the back in the control room, so we could make it to that lightning round at the very end. But before we check in or move on, we do a check-in on the show. And so I'd love to hear from our panel how we've been doing, what's been going on this week. Anyone want to start?
I'll jump on in, Tony.
Get in there, Dr.
One
Rob.
of the things I wanted to share with you, I think I mentioned it on my last time I was here. I was going to go visit with a few of my relatives, and I was able to be there to celebrate one of my aunt's 101st birthday, Esuvia Martinez Garcia. We call her Aunt Cheva, and she's just an amazing, amazing woman. She was kind of the matriarch of our family, and so being able to spend an afternoon with her and some of my cousins and other aunts and uncles, just cherished moments. So that just warmed my heart over the last few weeks, and I've been carrying that good family spirit with me. And, I also just wanted to mention, Jeremy, niceness is everywhere. It's everywhere. You just have to look for it, though. So we'll talk more about that as we get on. But I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you. And wow, 1925? She born in 1925?
That's right.
Wow,
That's
1920.
right.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
Born in the 20s. But you have another relative though too.
I do. I have an aunt on the other side that's going to be 106 this year in September, and that's my godmother, Isabel Gastrida Gutierrez, and she's just thriving and loving life, and has a little taste of beer every now and then. But and my Nina, my godmother, and we're just blessed to have that family still with us.
It's incredible. And I mean, wow, to be able to go spend that time and to travel to do that. And I mean, again, the topic of the show tonight is women's history, and we're learning about that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the women's suffrage movement, I mean, women, ended up getting the right to vote around that time when your relatives were born.
They've been fighters all their lives for, staying alive and taking care of family and what's right, doing what's right.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Hey, you got a lot going on. Some amazing stuff.
Yeah. Oh man. Let me just say that's beautiful though.
Thank you, Tony.
A lot of my grandmothers were passed away, before I was born. And so that was something that, was always missing, you know what I mean? And to say that, like, wow, this is like, it's special.
Absolutely.
Special. So God bless you for that. And this is also a shout out to my grandma, Lena, through marriage, who I'm going to tell you what, she is a grandma, and she just fell and hurt her hip, broke her hip, or like something happened. But so spry. And I walked her down from, we were celebrating a family members. And this is why you got to go to family functions. And we were walking her down. I was holding her. Anyways, long story short, gosh, special. So, what's going on with me now? Retro Pie is going on, Jeremy. Manteca, California. It's amazing pizza. Lulu and Lawrence are the owners, and we're blowing it up right now on Monday night Mixed Mics, and that's what I got.
Oh, that's amazing. I got the opportunity to go to a couple of them, and you're right, the pizza is incredible. If you have not had a chance to go by there to get a slice of pizza, you got to do it. But the comedy's even more amazing, and the music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just a collection of talent, and what's special is for the most part, it's very local. Mm-hmm. It's Manteca, Stockton, Modesto. But we just had someone come out from all the way as Fresno,
Cool.
country singer. And It's funny, believe it or not, he's an ostrich farmer. And he sent me a picture of him and this ostrich. I'm going to have to send it to you.
I got to see
Oh,
it.
don't
Yeah.
mention
It's
it.
great. And I said,
Holy
am I that crazy? Does Tony G, the comedian, do a stunt on the ostrich? We'll find out.
All right, you're leaving me in suspense here.
How about your week, Jeremy?
Oh wow, yeah.
got some-
Well, I'll be transparent. I've been prepping for my doctoral dissertation
Yay.
defense. I'm very excited about that. It has kept me very busy the last, since the last 3.5 years or so, 4 years. But I've been especially busy since December, and I haven't been on social media as much because of it. So you're not seeing me out there as often, but I'm excited about that. I'll be defending my dissertation next week on Friday. Thank you.
Congrats.
And but we're doing so much. I mean, we were in the paper recently, Calaveras Enterprise. We're working on a movie, documentary feature film. So we're excited about that. And by the way, that's why we're off last week. So we want to thank you for, following up with us today and watching the show. But thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. And Dr. Jennifer, how are things going for you?
Things are going pretty well for me. We had the pleasure of hosting Brandon Leak last night at University of the Pacific. And so he was fabulous. So he shared a couple of his poems and he shared his life story. It was really inspiring. There were probably 30 people in the audience, so it was a really nice, intimate setting. You don't get that very often. And so, that was super cool. That was a really nice highlight. You were talking about niceness and bringing that. He definitely brings the niceness and really, really uplifting conversation. Even though, we're going through some hard times.
Yes.
But I think really, really impactful speaker.
Oh, awesome.
Very
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, he is one of our connections here. Maybe he'll be on the show someday soon. We'll see. We would love to have somebody share poetry. That would be a great theme. And by the way, I want to mention Dr. Dwight Rogers is in the LA area for a conference, and we wish him well. He wanted to be here tonight. He misses our audience, but he does send his wishes for our audience. And we're going to go ahead and move on. We're live in Studio 24, and the show is about to start. The bell's about to ring. Okay, we're moving on to segment 2. And, as we close out Women's History Month, we want to just kind of discuss a few things. I mean, number one, Women's History Month is super important. I mean, to me, wish we could, it should be normal that it's we don't have to have a month, right? And so as we close out, we do want to talk about, and explore women's history and why it matters and why it's so important. Dr. Jennifer, when we talk about women's history, especially the history of girls, why does it matter for students and educators today that we learn about girls' studies and women's studies? And
Yeah, thank you for that question, Jeremy. I mean, on one level, women are about 50% of the people on the planet, and so we ought to tell their stories, and it's nice to hear some stories that are a little bit different, maybe stories you haven't heard before. So that's the sort of nicety stuff. But come on, right now, I just feel that I've been teaching at University of Pacific for 20 years. I taught at Cal State Fullerton for about 5 years before that. And I was sort of feeling like, women's history, we're doing the teaching, but it's no longer as impactful. And I got to tell you, over the last 2 to 3 years, it feels impactful again.
wow.
Why? We have Doge cutting NEH grants because they have the word women in them, because they have the word marginal in them, because they're about violence towards women during the Holocaust. We have influencers saying that women have never invented anything. And so for me, it's just a wake-up call about, and I think it goes in waves where starting to feel like things are pretty good. Maybe women's history is integrated into the curriculum. We don't need these separate classes. And then you wake up looking through your feed and finding all of these kinds of issues going on. And so the Women's History Classroom is a place where we can discuss it. Women's History Month is a place where we can focus more broadly as a society. And finally, I'll say it matters so much. Mm-hmm. Every human needs to see themselves represented in the past. Every human. We don't have to be inventors to find a place in history. You don't have to be an inventor to matter. So yes, I think Women's History Month matters immensely, especially because it's a moment where people outside of academia actually focus in and think about their grandmothers and other people who have influenced them in society.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And the thing, too, is when we open up history books, I mean, we don't see equal representation in there of men and women. I mean, we see, and then there's also, when we look at wages, when we look at, administration, and we look at, demographics regarding, who leads big companies or Fortune 500 companies. So there's just a tremendous amount of work to do to try to bring more awareness to, these major concerns. Wages, again, are not equal. There was a equal rights amendment that, almost passed but failed to get ratified by the states, I think. And so that, but as you mentioned too, our students need to see themselves represented in the curriculum. And I would argue that, women have been incredibly, immensely important throughout world history in a variety of capacities. And we just are not doing a good job telling the stories, and we need to do that more.
Speaking of inventions, it is believed that women of Sumeria invented beer. So there you go, 7,000 years ago.
Just shut us up. That's why. Men being.
Did you want to ask a question too?
Well, I was thinking, about from the district perspective, Jeremy, how we talk about women's history and again, try and celebrate. Many districts around the country are celebrating some things. And what's a challenge, I think, as we're saying, is that throughout an entire school district level, the culture still is suppressive oftentimes to women. And we don't do a good enough job of recognizing our women in our curriculum pieces as the warriors they could be in whatever arena that is for, intellectually, artistically, scientifically. And now when we start to do some things from the district level for our younger female audience groups, sometimes the funding is pulled away. So it's so incumbent on the district leadership to ensure that not only due to Title IX, but because it's the right thing to do, that we're being inclusive of girls, women, the culture, so that they can see themselves, as Dr. Helgren said. Women's history, I believe, can sometimes be that mirror where a young woman, and even for our young men, can see the value of these people who are people first. We're all people. So we should be valuing their contributions and their selves just for being there. So we need to do a better job doing that.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Tony, did you want to mention anything? You got a question at all for Dr. Jennifer?
Gosh, a million really, but I'm just impressed by your passion that I'm seeing that came up as we started talking about this and the challenges you guys have. And see, that's the kind of person we need in leadership, championing your cause. See more of you and that's why you're here. So we can lift your voice up. So that's really not a question, but an admiration.
I do have a question, Jeremy, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So obviously focus on women's history at higher education, but when you think about now implementation of curriculum for elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, what kind of transition, how does that look to you to see that we're actually making a difference for the students earlier?
Do you mean in terms of curriculum?
Or it just
the ideal
process.
history education, what it would look like?
Sure.
It would look like each student gets to select the topics that they're interested in, that they get to pursue the topics that they're interested in. But as a historian, it means they're doing historical thinking, which means they're thinking critically about the past. They're asking the questions about the past. They're reading actual primary sources and documents about the past. They're wondering what those are about, what their purposes were, where they come from, what multiple perspectives there are, were there biases in there? Yes, there's biases in all of them. And that's what I would like to see. And women would be part of that. And it's not necessarily like heroes. Yes, we should learn about Harriet Tubman. Yes, we should learn about Lucretia Mott. Yes, we should learn about Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Alice Paul. But we should also learn about our ancestors. So I love that you started, in fact, with people in your family, because that's often a nice access point for youth to begin to think about history. You open up maybe you have family diaries, but maybe you just have the census and what's publicly available or newspaper records. And then the questions start to follow from that. And I think that's a really, really wonderful way to get students interested and also, finding their connection to those stories.
We got about 10 more minutes to move on for this next segment. I do want to transition and talk about your book.
Okay.
That's the next segment. You wrote an amazing book. A couple amazing books or more than that. Can you tell us about your books and, share a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. So my research focus is really on gender and citizenship and the intersection of age and gender and what that means for how girls experience the world and how they're trained for their future roles. And so I look at youth organizations. Campfire Girls has been my focus. I was a campfire girl when I was a child, so probably comes from that. And so the main book here is Campfire Girls.
I'm going to grab it so we can hold it up real quick.
Thanks.
Yeah. You want to hold it up for us?
For Gender, Race, and American Girlhood, 1910 to 1980. So this was the most recent book. And it looks at how this one youth organization, which was actually supposed to be the sister organization to the Boy Scouts in the United States of America, it gets kind of messy because we all know that Juliette Lowe, who started the Girl Scouts, was friends with Robert Baden-Powell, who started the Boy Scouts in Europe. And so she brings back the Girl Scouts, the American Boy Scouts, who establish a separate organization. I mean, they're all connected. It's an international movement, but it's a separate institution. They don't like the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts are doing things that are much too much like boys. In fact, Women's History Month factoid, fun fact. I don't know if it's fun. James West and the Boy Scouts actually sued the Girl Scouts in the 1920s for the use of the name Scout because they said that it undermined the manliness of the Boy Scouts for girls to be using that name.
Very scouting-like.
But that gives you a sort of idea of who these guys are. I'm involved in Scouting America today, so I'm not here to like throw dirt at Scouts.
I was a Cub Scout.
Though
True story.
There's plenty of dirt to go around, I think, is part of what you learn when you study
real quick,
history.
if we could back up, Campfire Girls, can you tell us a little bit,
So-
what does that mean to be a campfire girl?
So Campfire started as the sister organization to the Boy Scouts, and they were supposed to inculcate both traditional womanhood, which is like, nurture, homemaking, beauty. They were supposed to maintain all of those traditional spiritual elements of the 19th century and bring that forward into the industrial modern era and add to it. So keep what you have, but carve out new roles in public spaces, be prominent in reform, do sports and activities. Luther Gulick, who founded Campfire with his wife, Charlotte Gulick, for example, wrote into the early activities, one way that you could they earned beads. They didn't earn merit badges. You walk 100 miles each month. That's not a little bit, right? Yeah. I mean, so it was
100
very
miles?
active. This was not frail womanhood that they were sponsoring. It was conservative in the sense that they didn't want it modeled on the Boy Scouts. They wanted girls to have strong health, strong education, strong friendships, strong relationships, so that they could be productive in the world, so that they would be useful citizens, not just to their home, but to their entire communities. And so the second book, which is called American Girls and Global Responsibility, looks at the post-war period, the Cold War period in particular, and looks at that same model of here are traditional values that girls are supposed to still maintain, but what kinds of citizenship duties do they have to the world? And in the atomic era, girls were seen as potential peacekeepers. They wrote pen pals to girls in Japan within a year of the end of the war. Germany was a little bit more tense, actually, but the pen pals are there too. So these institutions, these organizations facilitate character development. They have particular ideas about what gender roles are. I think this is true into our own day, though youth organizations are not as big as they were in the 1950s, is sort of the heyday. But the goals that the nation has, the political ideologies that we have, they're expressed through these organizations. There's a lot of consternation about the politicization of girlhood. It's there even in the beginning.
Would you say that the organizations have served to empower or to create some limits where without them, there'd have been a different outcome?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me
Right?
about that. Yeah.
I mean, that's the U.S. It is an either or question, but it really is both. So to go back to the Gulicks at the beginning in the 1910s when they established Campfire Girls, Luther Gulick actually calls it essential feminism. It's a phrase that he's ready to use that. Campfire won't use that for the whole rest of the 20th century. Girl Scouts also will never say the word feminism, but they're all about empowering girls and women. So what is essential feminism? For Luther Gulick, it's sometimes called cultural feminism, sometimes difference feminism. Like there's lots of different kinds of feminism. There is not just one feminism. And difference feminism focuses on the things that are unique to women as the source of their empowerment. So the Gulicks thought, naively perhaps, idealistically perhaps, that through the organization, they could honor things like nurture, things like beauty, things like romance. And I don't mean like sexual romance, just the romantic side of life. Having roses on the table, having decorations, just this kind of romantic aesthetic, if you will, that they could dignify women's roles. That was another way, not just making everyone equal, but actually dignifying the roles. They didn't have to be the same. So that was one way they tried to empower girls. But I think more broadly, girls found outdoor activity. They found friendships. They found speaking opportunities. You run a council. You run a meeting. In doing, there's the empowerment.
We got a couple more minutes, and then we got to move on. But I also wanted to ask you too. You mentioned that basically enrollment has sort of declined in some of these organizations. Is that true? I mean, have you seen that today? Also, it seems like there wasn't, if we look at history, there was a ton of different organizations. People used to really be pretty active, and membership in a lot of these community-based organizations like Kiwanis and et cetera, they're going down. It's gone down. I mean, have you noticed anything about just practicing social skills where maybe we need some of that more today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a national phenomenon. I think the best book on it is Robert Putnam's Bowling Alone. And he looks at how Americans still bowl. The book is like 15, 20 years old now, but he looks at how Americans are still bowling, but they're not in leagues. They bowl alone. Right. And he's looking at all of the things that Americans still do, but they do it, parallel to others, but they're not actually doing it together. And youth organizations, it's just one example. I think it's true, but not entirely. Like for girls, there are a lot of opportunities that have opened up outside of Girl Scouts and Campfire that they didn't have in the 1960s.
Yeah.
I mean, Title IX and sports is a huge one.
And I think of,
but there are lots of others,
and I think of
too.
like some of the districts I've been in, a few of the groups, Girls on the Run, for example, which is kind of a, girls who want to run, and who comes in and
they're not necessarily competitive.
They're not competitive. It's
They're
like where
just
everybody
fun.
can run. And so, my wife and I, we've done a few 5Ks with her just to go, or, girls empowerment group days, but it takes people to decide we need to give opportunities to, girls as well.
Yeah.
Got to take that action.
And Girl Scouts is still going strong. Campfire still exists. It's co-educational. Actually, let me rephrase it. It is open to all genders. That's how Campfire talks about their organization today. And so, I mean, they're still there, but their heyday was before the 70s, which has to do with funding changes, Vietnam, counterculture, and a whole lot more.
Wow, yeah. Anything else? We got to get ready to move on, but is there anything else that our viewers really need to know about your research and your books. But besides, we want to tell them where they can get a copy if they're interested. But anything else that they need to know about this?
I would just say that the girls' voices themselves matter, and those run through the works. And I think that also applies to education, like listening to kids. They actually help shape the organization by the choices they make and their choice to participate or not. Right?
Yeah. Can I hold up your book real quick?
Yeah, and you
Beautiful
can get
book.
It. That's University of Nebraska Press, but also Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your local bookstores. Even a better way to go, they'll order it for you.
I love the colors. It's a beautiful book. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those stores.
Yeah.
Very thick book, by the way. How long did it take you to write this?
And there's
thing?
a lot of footnotes in there, so you don't have to read all of the entire text. But yes, we scholars love our Chicago style footnotes.
Well, and I think, the fact that it's a bigger book, it makes me want to read it even more. So how many pages is it?
I think it's 250.
250.
The publisher said no more than 250. Maybe it's 256. I don't know.
And then your other book.
That's crazy, right?
Same thing.
Same thing. It's Rutgers University Press. It's a little shorter, but Rutgers made the print tiny. So
Whatever happened to just reading a good big book like
Yeah.
Moby Dick? You just read it, right? But that's nothing. I could
it's a nice
one
way to
day,
do it.
one day.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Hey, this has been a lot of fun so far. And of course, we'll talk, at the end there, maybe a final message too, if you want to connect it to your book. We do need to move on. The next segment is a discussion segment on lessons for education today. One of the things that we always try to do on the show is, try to keep things current and talk about what's happening and what's happening right now in schools. And so we want to bring this forward and, what can educators learn from these historical experiences when it comes to empowering students today? Because I think you shared some really important stuff just now regarding, the history of youth organizations as it relates to gender and things like that. And so I wanted to ask you what lessons stand out most to you and how can schools intentionally create these opportunities for all students to be able to lead? I mean, leadership is a great component of these youth organizations, but are there ways that we can do that within our school system or K-12 model?
yeah, I'll let some of the people who have had more classroom teaching than I have speak more to this, but I would say that the thing that youth organizations do is they teach by experience. They teach by doing. Like you learn to lead by leading. You learn to sew by sewing. You learn to camp by camping. I think even in the college classroom, we could do a lot more of that.
All right, last question. I want to get over to here, but last question. I wanted to ask you this: do you have a favorite memory? You said you were a part of these organizations. Any fun stories you want to share?
Sure. So my favorite campfire memory was camping in Dogwood in Southern California, Angeles Oaks, California, and being there with my friends. And we would go hike away without our parents. We were probably only like 100 yards away, but we felt like we were really far away. And just having that independence to do that and be on our own.
Oh, that's fun. Thank you for sharing that. Is Dogwood still there, by the way?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Real quick, we have viewers that are commenting. Thank you. Keep the comments coming. And we have one viewer that mentioned that they appreciate you being on the show and bringing more awareness to these important topics. And the audience has been anticipating you being on the show, so very excited about that. But keep the comments rolling. If you have questions, we'll try to answer them over the air. Tony G, what actually works when trying to empower students in the real classroom?
In relation to women's history, or are we saying?
Well, I think just also we could connect it to both. I mean, to empower our youth, whether females, males, whomever. How do we do that? How do we build more opportunities? And the reason why I ask is because, learning about her research is just amazing to see the opportunities students had to learn to be leaders and to, learn by doing. So, I mean, anything you've learned about recently too, about getting out there and learning by doing in the classroom?
Well, I'm going to go roundabout, because when you asked me about this, I'm thinking I can't help but in my head, Rosie the Riveter. Okay. And why do I bring that up? So 2 years ago, I really had an epiphany as I've talked about this, throughout my comedy, throughout podcasting on mental health, and being just the complete misunderstood, very misunderstood field. And when I had my aha moment, it hit different. See, and that's the point with women's history and how you get it in the classroom. How does it affect the kids? See, the kids want to feel value. Well, half your kids are girls, and I see them get devalued. Not currently. I work here, but I've seen it so much, and you have to flip that narrative, right? And it happens from the top. The top, right? Whoever's at the top has to have that voice of understanding, because it's different. We're different. We're all different, right? Mental health's taught me that. So that's a lot I unpackaged on you, Jeremy, but
no, hey, and it has me makes me think about, there's an institution that I happen to really love that just recently barely sent out an email about Women's History Month. And it's like, wish we could do more, right? I think it starts from the top, like you talked about, and you have experience from the top, right?
Well, I think from the top, from the classroom, from a lot of different places, when we focus on leadership for our children, our students, for a classroom teacher to empower those students authentically. What are the types of things that we need to do to work this classroom and give opportunities to those students equally, without limitation, without stereotypes, so that our children of all sorts can lead, can take an opportunity. And one quick scouting story, because you made me think about this. Being a Cub master, I was a Cub master. 200 scouts, right? But when we went camping, one little story, we were out and we had all these organizational things and everything going on. And what helped this group of 10 little boys at the time was having a tree where they decided, we're going to go build a fort around that tree. And I kind of backed off all the dads and we said, just let them go. And they had the best 3 afternoons of their lives with free time, working together, engaging together. And I've used the same technique at a cabinet table where it's like, let them work.
Yeah.
Let the people bring their skills, let them bring opportunity to communicate with each other, let it work. Now, sometimes you got a guide like, no, we're not going to climb the 40-foot tree. But those opportunities, you have to give them to your people.
Yeah.
So they can actually be in a safe place, right? You want to do it in a safe place so that they can grow, develop, and experience. You really made me think of that.
What a novel idea, leading that way, empowering your people. I just got to ask this real quick. You mentioned that you were a Cub Scout. Was it a Cub Scout?
I was a Cub master.
Cub master.
He was the Cub
Yeah,
Scout.
and I'll tell you, my wife ended up doing the Boy Scout stuff while I was sticking down with the Cub Scout stuff.
Wow.
So she's amazing and empowered and could do it all.
So my question for everyone here is, I don't have the pleasure of that experience, but did you get your 100 miles? Did you get your 100 miles?
I've done plenty of 100-mile months. And I can actually do the Boy Scout thing. I am trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Wow.
And I was never a Boy Scout, but I made my sons memorize it.
I got like,
Can I ask a follow-up?
please. Yeah.
Something you said made me remember Peggy Ornstein's book, and this is something that I put into my teaching, so it doesn't necessarily have to come from the top, but it's a way, even if you have a standard curriculum, that you can make sure that different kinds of people are present. She says, start with Harriet Jacobs, for example.
Right.
Don't start with Lincoln. You'll never not get to Lincoln. But you'll always
to kind of
you'll always get to
bring
him.
clarity too. it's an understanding that, see, the top is, who is the top? Everyone in leadership is the top. And that's a challenge to all leaders, right? Because then now you got a movement. See? It's a movement now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well said. When you were talking about that, were we talking about in terms of curriculum, start not with Lincoln, but start with, is that?
Start with Harriet Jacobs,
Yeah.
right? So she's the one, the woman who wrote the runaway narrative from slavery. We often hear about Frederick Douglass. We don't hear often about Harriet Jacobs unless you do women's history. Then you know Harriet Jacobs really, really well. And you know, when you're having those conversations about what the 19th century was like, you're going to get to Lincoln, right? You're not going to,
Right.
forgot to talk about Lincoln
course.
over the course of your semester.
I also love the idea of starting back with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Seneca Falls Convention and the women's was it Declaration
The Declaration of Rights
of Rights of Women? Yeah. Powerful stuff, and they were interesting. They were working alongside the abolitionist movement,
Absolutely.
and they were sort of working together. And then, of course, we have the Civil War, and then it was like, are we going to have women's suffrage during that time? And it didn't happen, but. When we look at the suffragist movement, I mean, there was a fight for equality and access to vote and those kinds of things and rights way back early in American history. Very early. And I think that kind of gets glossed over too.
John Adams' wife, Abigail Adams, asked
She was amazing.
for him when he was working on the laws to remember the ladies, and they didn't. We know her phrase. Do you guys know his phrase? How he responded?
No.
Can you remind us?
I can only but laugh, right? And, in good, loving writing back to his wife, we know better than to disrupt our masculine systems, is what he says.
Yeah.
And so they knew what they were doing at the same time that they moved forward with this set of laws. So, yeah, I mean, I also want to canceling folks, and this week is really tough, right, for a lot of historians who care about social justice issues. And so when you say Elizabeth Cady Stanton, she's another one. She says some really obnoxious things after the Civil War. She courts white Southern men and women to jump onto the suffrage bandwagon so that they can balance whatever votes Black people are getting in different states and so on. And so there's really problematic stuff in there. One of the questions I was thinking about is like, who's your hero? Do you have women's history heroes? I have a few, but for the most part, I try to stay away from heroes and try to think about like heroic actions. Because Stan does heroic actions, even if you can't embrace the whole person, right? Because we're human.
Yeah.
There's some crappy stuff in our lives, right?
We've got about 15 minutes left. We got a comment, and I figured maybe we can go over here to you, Dr. Rob, for this one. The comment was we should have women's history as part of our high school curriculum. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I would concur. I think it's even curriculum
Should be mandatory.
across the board,
Yeah.
right? From our earliest stages, if there's opportunities that need to be embedded with working with all of our students about, again, the strengths, the knowledge, the expertise that women bring as people to our collective society. It's kind of like, where you now have the ethnic studies at some of at high school as a mandatory, but it keeps getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. And it's like, it's great as a goal, but shouldn't the goal be that every child sees themselves as soon as they walk into our classrooms and they feel the comfort and our teachers are aware and we're all learning it together? That's how you change a society.
And then doing what Dr. Rob just now said, how do you think, based on your classroom experience, Tony, how would students maybe do? We talk about students falling behind and not being as engaged. If the class material reflected, all of us, right? Do you think that and students could see themselves in the material, do you think that they would connect more with it?
Yeah.
More eager to learn?
Yeah. Engagement is the whole point. Without engagement, you can't take down the walls. Right. And so how do you do that? Well, you connect at all levels. And it's amazing because I had a very special, unique position. I didn't tell you I worked in the mental health program, both in CYA at the high school and all at the high school level, and in the public school system. And I got to experience everything, all walks of life. And it was beautiful. Once you embrace it for what it is, imperfection, who said it earlier, we all got stuff, right? Amazing, right? Well, the classroom, you accept that. And then you'll watch, all of a sudden, you'll see that green coming up in your room.
Yeah, great points right there. We're going to move on to segment 5. This is our reflection segment. And I wanted to ask, you mentioned women heroines, right? Heroes, but there are quite a few people out there who haven't made it into the textbooks, who've done amazing things, right? And so real quick, we're going to have some fun here. We'll do a quick lightning round. Again, there's so many girls and women who have shaped our communities and history, but haven't made it into the textbook. So who are some of those lesser known figures that, we should honor and recognize and talk about? And, we're going to go ahead and just, maybe you throw someone out and we'll go around the room. Would you want to start us off?
Sure.
And we'll go around this way, just a heads up.
And are we going to say what they
We're
did too?
I
or
would
just
love
their
that.
names?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, that'd be great if you could do that.
Grace Oyahara, she was a University of the Pacific student who was incarcerated during World War II because she was Japanese American, and she was just months from finishing her degree, which she got in absentia, but she did not get to do her final piano performance. And she went on from wanting to be a piano teacher to being one of the mothers of the redress movement in the 1970s, 1980s. So she's my first one.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I love that it's a UOP alumni.
So the person that's been on my mind has been Dolores Huerta. And again, maybe not a perfect person, some would say, but this lady, the co-founder of the United Farm Workers of America. And it's important to me because, quite frankly, my family, both sides, my mother's family and my father's family, were fruit pickers and throughout California. And in fact, my parents met in the Merced Valley as they were both picking and traveling throughout California. And again, just the passion and the commitment that things had to change for a group of people. And she got behind that. And had led, to a number of different civil rights movements and changes throughout her years. She's still alive today, and I'll tell you, I have many cousins. One of my cousins wrote a book about some of the tribulations that United Farm Workers had through the years. And he's a professor at Dartmouth, Matt Garcia, and I think the book is called "Out of the Jaws of Victory." So anyway, Dolores Huerta has been on my mind.
Thank you. Everything that happened too, that's kind of come out and come to light. I did want to say that you mentioned she's still alive. She definitely is still alive. She was just recently in Stockton at San Joaquin Delta College. Right. And some of our students in the local schools got to go see her speak. So that was amazing. Tony G.
Well, I'm going to go with Frida Kahlo. And her story is amazing. It's like, speaking of coming from a time where, women didn't have a voice, and you're now in Mexico where it's very traditional, and her talent was that great. Just, and she went through heartache, right? And she had, just an amazing story. And not only that, but she's also my wife's favorite artist.
Oh,
my wife's. And so that's where it really hits. But, my sister-in-law, Leticia, actually went to her place in Mexico.
Wow.
Just incredible.
We got comments rolling in. Keep the comments coming. Sorry. One of the comments that we got was from Robert Kluver. Thank you for sharing. Ronda Rousey is somebody who he wanted to shout out. She, I think, is a mixed martial arts fighter in the UFC. So,
Empowerment.
yeah, there we go. First ever women's bantamweight champ, I think. Okay.
Did not know that. Thank you.
And she's got a fight coming up.
Yeah.
She's got a fight coming up, I believe.
That's right. She does. So, yeah, thank you for keeping the comments
I'm
coming.
not saying I'm a fan or anything of this.
Yeah. So for me, thank you, Dr. Rob. For me, I think it's Maya Angelou. She's, in poetry, she's a poet. She was a major activist as well. And just an incredible person. She was actually on Oprah in the 90s. And she said this, she said, people may not remember what you said to them or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And, she's just incredible. She impacted me when I was young. I had an English teacher that actually, we read her book. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and just the stuff that she went through in her youth, and seeing how talking about resilience, the challenges she overcame. And I just absolutely love her poetry. I was actually in kind of preparing today. I read through some of her poetry. I thought, I haven't seen her poetry in a long time. So I went and read through some of it, and it's just incredible. And there was even stuff too, connected to, activism for, women's rights and things like that. There was one poem, I believe, that I looked at, and it was something on, I know why, why they came home, something like that. I'm probably butchering the title of it. But check out her poetry. She's amazing. I love this fact too. She actually had quite a few visits to Stockton in her lifetime. Her mother lived in Stockton, and she actually was she got an honorary doctorate from UOP. She's spoken at UOP before. So kind of cool, huh?
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we did the lightning round. That was fun. And we're going to move on to segment 7, final word segment, because we're wrapping up here, and I'm told that this segment usually takes about 6 minutes. So we're getting the timing down here. We're going to nail it tonight. So our guests, our senior education contributors, they get an opportunity to share a final message, a final. It could be a story, it could be words of wisdom, it could be advice, it could be something connected to your book as well. But we want to give everybody a chance to share something for our final word segment. Tony G, you want to start us off, and then we're going to go around this way. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So this is my final word.
Final word, yeah.
All right. Guys, do something for your wives, right? Something special this month. You better go special. That's a challenge to me now. You, Jeremy. And if you don't have a wife, just see something platonically special for someone, a friend. Obviously, I'm not saying ask them out, okay? But do something nice. It's amazing. I try to do that whenever I worked my last few years, when I had just that moment. The registrar mattered. The person who does attendance mattered, and I purposely want to make sure they're happy, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could function, but are you happy? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the goal for all of us.
I want to mention this, by the way. I've had the wonderful opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with Tony G the last week or so. And spending time with you, I noticed that, he doesn't just, he practices what he preaches. He actually does that. And a couple of times he snuck off to go shopping for his wife. And I just thought that was really a romantic and a wonderful thing. And so he is definitely a gentleman here. All right, Dr. Rob.
Okay, well, I've been busy. So a couple of things I want to share is, don't forget The Story of Sparkle and Shine, which is a children's book, but it's not. It's for everybody, because it tells a story of a little elf who wants to make a difference in the world, and so he starts doing those things. Tony mentioned niceness. Sparkle, spread positive acts regarding kind, loving encounters. And by doing this, you can create shine, significantly help increase niceness everywhere. That's a little shine down here. And it's a kid's book. But again, you give it to an adult and just say, just give yourself 3 minutes, and they're going to smile and they're going to want to do nice things. And just to share, Jeremy, some nice things have been happening to me. We had some cars delivered at our house last night, old Model A Ford trucks. And one of my neighbors, who I've talked to maybe 3 times since I've lived in this place, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Came down and gave us 2 hours of support, helped us tow these trucks up. Oh my gosh. So Sam was our hero last night. Niceness. Niceness can be everywhere, but you got to look for it. You got to look for it. You got to take action. Don't forget about recipes for resilience, opportunity to help persevere students and educators. Life is going to be tough. Resilience is needed for everybody, and our systems, our people can help other people thrive. So they're both available on Amazon. I appreciate you inviting me back to be here with Tony, Dr. Helgren, yourself. Just be nice, people. Be nice, please.
Kindness.
Kindness. It does work.
Were you here for the kindness episode?
I don't
Maybe,
remember.
maybe not. I don't know. You've been on a lot.
I've been on a lot,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I'll be back.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely will. He's our regular
I
guest.
got a sticker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about these real quick.
So
these
these
are
are
fun.
just some stickers that, again, I'm trying to figure out. I may be out there on a sticker mule, so you can get your own sticker. It's just me doing some inspiring resilience. And this is a story of Sparkle and Shine. And don't forget about your recipe for resilience sticker. So these are out there, and we'll have some merchandise coming too.
And you've been on a couple other podcasts recently
I
too.
have. I'm going to be with Joy Wessler over the next couple of weeks. I was with Dana Goodyear this last Sunday, Josh Tover as well. So look for me all over social media, Resiliency Guy, or you can email me. Yes, I'll give you my email, resiliencyguy@gmail.com. So booking for next year for speakers as well. I'm going to get out there and start doing some stuff. So all my AXA folks, let me know what you need. All right.
I love that, and having an amazing impact right there, all over, of course.
All over.
That's
Thanks,
incredible.
Jeremy.
Thank you, Dr. Rob, for being here. It means a lot. And then Dr. Jennifer, take us home.
Yeah. I want to echo the be nice part. It's just so important right now more than ever. I also want you all, as we close out Women's History Month, to practice your historical thinking skills. Find out a little bit more about your family, about your past. Look for the story you didn't know was there, and try to look at it from a different perspective. Try to think about the alternate stories that might have been a little bit hidden. Go in with curiosity, inquiry, and an open mind. So I think that's mostly what I would want to close with. I will also share my email is jhelgren@pacific.edu. If you're interested to hear more about the youth organizations, particularly girls organizations in the 20th century.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jeremy. This is really
do you have
fun.
room in your class? I might re-enroll. And
I do. In fact, we're teaching U.S. Women's History in the fall, which is my most favorite class to teach, and do it every other year or thereabouts. So yeah, come on in.
believe it or not, we have a lot of UOP students for some reason. They love the show. They follow us. And so you better register and enroll in her class because I bet you it'll get full.
going on right now. So
Yeah. Awesome. Real quick before we wrap up, your books, where can they purchase them again?
you could do Amazon, Barnes & Noble, University of Nebraska Press for the Campfire book, Rutgers for the Global book, and ask your local bookstore.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's episode of the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks Weekly Recess. We really appreciate you watching the show. We do want to thank Dr. Jennifer Helgren for being here tonight, joining us, helping us close out Women's History Month with such an important conversation. How about a round of applause, right? Thank you so much.
She's a history buff.
Definitely is. Dr. Rob, we really appreciate you being here. of course, on such short notice, especially the drive. Tony G, thank you so much as well for all that you do. And we have to give a special shout out to our all-women team in the back running the show in the control room. We got to recognize them. Thank you so much.
Woman power.
Yes. And so thanks for all that you do. It feels especially fitting. Also, we want to thank our 1.5 million viewers from around the world who've watched the show and who've tuned in 47 countries. Thank you. We appreciate you. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. And then, until then, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. And in our schools and our communities and our districts out there, please take care of each other. We'll see you next time on the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks, Weekly Recess. Bye-bye.